Welcome back to the channel. I'm the Fantasy Football Strategist. Please, stop drafting these running backs at their current ADP. It's not that we shouldn't like them, it's just that we shouldn't like where they're going in drafts. Please remember to like and subscribe. Let's get into the video. At 5, I have Kyren Williams, running back for the Los Angeles Rams. He's currently going 16th off the board at the 204 as the RB7. The RB7. He's going above the likes of Travis Etienne, Derrick Henry, players who really have no credible backups behind them that should really scare you at all. One thing to remember about Kyren Williams is the Rams spent a 5th-round pick on him, so they really have no major investment in him. So he's absolutely expendable to them. While you think that might be a good thing and that they might give him all of the carries and overuse him, there's evidence to the contrary here. Well, the Rams GM admits that they drafted Blake Corum so that they could not totally run down Kyren Williams. While generally the Rams have preferred to have a bell cow at running back, a la Todd Gurley and really Kyren Williams before this, them drafting Blake Corum and spending 3rd-round draft capital on him suggests that he's going to get some carries this year. They drafted him 83rd overall, and that's a good amount of draft capital. Another thing to think about is Kyren Williams is really not that good of an athlete. When you look at all of the top shelf running backs, they're all elite athletes. He's in a really good scheme, and he's technically sound as a running back, but he's really slow. He doesn't have very much burst, and he's not even that agile, really. He really lacks top-shelf speed, as his 4.65 40-yard dash suggests, and being under 200 pounds, specifically 194 at the time he was drafted, that gives him a 9th percentile speed score. That means not only is he slow, he's also incredibly slow for his size. His burst score is also in the 20th percentile. Really, really poor. He's also just average in terms of his agility. So while he has good vision and patience and he's good at technically being a running back, he's at such a disadvantage because he's not a good athlete. He's just in a really good scheme. This, along with them drafting Blake Corum in the 3rd round, 83rd overall, and the GM admitting even that they want to spell him more, he is almost certainly not going to reach his RB7 price tag. Avoid that at all costs. You will regret it when he finishes nowhere near the RB7 this year. The next player is Browns running back Nick Chubb. One thing to consider here is he's 28 years old and coming off a gruesome knee injury. You got to feel bad for the guy. He's really quiet, he's a hard worker, and he's a team leader even though he's not outspoken. It was terrifying seeing that injury. He's going off the board as the RB28 at the 807. And once you look into the factors at play here, I don't think you're going to feel comfortable taking him there either. In an article published a couple weeks ago, it states, "It remains to be seen when Nick Chubb will be ready to make his season debut in 2024. As of June 25th, he has yet to return to practice, and there is no current timetable as to when he's going to be able to get back on the practice field." Now, they do go on to mention that he's progressing nicely, but that doesn't mean anything really, as sad as it is to say. So, considering we don't even know when he's going to come back, and we don't really have any clear indication that it's going to be remotely soon, it is a dangerous game taking him this early. Looking at what DraftShark says, they give him a 74.1% chance of being injured this year. That's significant. This is a 7.6% likelihood in any given game of him being injured. That's really, really high. And what they're doing is they're looking at historical data too by age and injury history. So that's some pretty detailed research and a big reason that I really cannot justify this, and I don't think you should either. Looking into his injury history, in 2015 he tore his LCL, MCL, and PCL. That is horrific knee damage. Then in 2020 he sprained his MCL again. Then this past year he had another devastating injury. He tore his MCL, ACL, and meniscus. The worst part is it was the other knee. So this has happened to both knees now, and he's had multiple ligaments damaged in both. Being 28 years old, the last age in which running backs in general, if they're really good, can hit peak production, that's just really not looking good for him. As unfortunate as it is to say, and as much as I would love to be able to draft him, I don't think that we can really justify this draft selection. Rest up, Nick Chubb, and I hope he does return with vengeance, and I hope he proves me wrong. I just don't think that's going to happen, unfortunately. The next player on this list is Javonte Williams, running back for the Denver Broncos. Like Nick Chubb, he's also had a terrible knee injury in his NFL career. Still only 24, going into his fourth year, standing at 5'10", 220. He's a big power back. I just don't think that we can realistically justify this RB27 price tag at the 806. And here's why. Looking at the Denver Broncos rushing attempts in 2023, they finished as the 18th highest team in terms of total rush attempts. That's lower than the median, and really, I don't think things are going to change here. Their defense is absolutely atrocious. Their offensive line is too, for that matter. So they're going to be forced to pass whether or not they want to. He sustained a gruesome knee injury in 2022, and he just quite frankly didn't look like the same player this past year when he returned. The entire year as well. He was incredibly inefficient with his carries in what was an awful offense that really isn't going to improve this year. Bo Nix, we'll see if he turns into anything. Can't really count too much on him. The surrounding cast of Courtland Sutton, Greg Dulcich, Troy Franklin isn't really inspiring either. But it gets worse. They drafted a new power back in Audric Estime. Here's something to consider here as well. Head coach Sean Payton has no loyalty to Javonte Williams. He did not draft him. He did just draft Audric Estime. They play a similar game, and one is much younger than the other and doesn't have any injury history, really. All things considered here, I think they definitely split reps, and there's a decent chance that Audric Estime is just better than him anyways. All things considered here, I don't think we can really justify his ADP here. There's a good chance he finishes as an RB4, or potentially worse. He could even lose his job for all we know. I wish him the best, but I just don't think that we can justify this ADP. The next player is Chiefs running back Isaiah Pacheco. So he's 25 years old, going into his third season with the Chiefs. He took the starting role by storm over Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who was a former first-round pick, which is impressive. And he's a great player that runs with extreme aggression. I've never seen anything like it before. Being drafted as the RB12 at the 309, you're really projecting for things to get even better for him. I don't think that's going to be the case, and here's why. This past year, the Chiefs finished 25th in total rush attempts, very low, and that's considering they had a really good defense and, at least by the Chiefs' standards, struggled to pass the ball this past year. Then when we look at his total rush attempts, he finished 22nd in the NFL. So, all things considered here, they don't run the ball very much. By the way, they still have the same offensive coordinator. And he also just didn't get that many rush attempts. So, with a lack of opportunity, he's going to have to make up for that efficiency tremendously. Then, when we think about their defense, it got worse. They lost star cornerback L'Jarius Sneed. That's really going to hurt them this year. He finished as the RB15 this past year, despite only playing 14 games. And had his situation remained the same, I would feel a little bit more comfortable with his ADP. But considering that they don't run the ball very much, and their defense is worse this year, I really don't think that we can justify this ADP because they're going to be passing a lot more. Plus, they want to be able to pass the ball more efficiently and more often, which is why they brought in Hollywood Brown and then drafted Xavier Worthy. This to go with Rashee Rice in the slot and Travis Kelce at tight end. Once again, they're going to have a potent passing attack, and I think it's going to be leaned on even more heavily this season. For these reasons, I don't think we should feel comfortable drafting him here. If he was maybe the RB 15 to 18, I would feel a lot more comfortable. I just think we're going to see a decline in production here. The final player on this list is De'Von Achane of the Miami Dolphins. He's going as the RB8 at the 211. This is really, really, really early. I understand that he had a big blow-up game against Denver, and he does have tremendous potential on a week-to-week basis, but being 5'9", 188 pounds, below 190 pounds with a 27.8 BMI, he was injured multiple times in his rookie season and didn't have a full workload. Things aren't going to change here, and here's why I really don't like his ADP as the RB8 going in the second round. When we look at the Dolphins, they finished 15th overall in total rushing attempts, which is neither really good or bad, more so middle of the pack. But here's the thing. It's not as if they're one of the most run-heavy teams in the league. Then what did they do? They traded up in the fourth round to draft Jalen Wright. As I said earlier, he's more of a Raheem Mostert replacement, but for redraft leagues here, that definitely hurts because that means if Raheem Mostert were to go down, it's not Achane's backfield. It's going to be essentially the same exact split. And if all three manage to stay healthy or are healthy during various points of the season, there's a good chance it's somewhat of a three-man committee here. That's good for none of them. Then when we look at their depth chart, there are so many mouths to feed in this offense, it's insane. They have Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, they even brought in OBJ. They signed Jonnu Smith. They now have a three-man committee in the backfield. I just don't think that we can justify this ADP. A second-round player that's going to be a committee back that's really small and dealt with injuries and an offense where he's going to be inconsistent. I definitely want no part of that. I'll definitely pass, and I'll go for someone later like Josh Jacobs. I really like him as a player, and he's supremely talented. It's just way too rich for my taste here. In summary, the 5 running backs to avoid at their current ADP are Kyren Williams, Nick Chubb, Javonte Williams, Isaiah Pacheco, and De'Von Achane. Remember that Kyren Williams is being drafted as the RB7, and they brought in Blake Corum, and they definitely don't want to overuse him this year, per their GM. It's going to be hard for him to be the RB7. Then we have Nick Chubb. He's 28 years old, coming off the second major knee injury of his career. It's just a bad bet, and we don't even know when he's going to return. Then we have Javonte Williams, who has not looked the same since his major knee injury, and Sean Payton has no loyalty to him, and they drafted another power back in Audric Estime, who could steal his job potentially. Isaiah Pacheco is being drafted as the RB12. They signed Hollywood Brown. They drafted Xavier Worthy. They still have Rashee Rice and Travis Kelce. I just don't see how he's the RB12 this year. Their defense also lost L'Jarius Sneed, so they might be less inclined to be able to run the ball as much. And finally, De'Von Achane is going to be in a three-way split backfield. And in order to pay off as the RB8, he's going to first of all have to stay healthy the entire year and more than likely either have to sustain his otherworldly efficiency or depend on one of the other running backs being injured. It's really going to have to be a combination of both. It's just not a good bet for you. So what do you think? Do you like these players at their ADPs? Yes or no? Let me know in the comment section. I'm the Fantasy Football Strategist. Please remember that I am building a library of knowledge for which you can use to dominate your fantasy football leagues in 2024 and beyond. Please like and subscribe. Thank you and have a good day.